Hi, I'm Laura Powers, and I'm here at a ranch in Wyoming, and I'm here to document and share some clearing work that I'm going to be doing here. Heard from the owners that there were some things that were happening that they couldn't explain, and they just felt like there were some earthbound spirits or ghosts here. So I'm here to help shift that, and I want you to share that process with you. I also want you to note that this intro that we did yesterday. However, when we looked at the recording, there was no sound, which we can't explain. However, when you're working with spirits, a lot of times strange things happen in general, but especially with technical issues. So we're redoing it right now. So this is actually day 2 that we're here, and you're going to cut now to what we did yesterday, and then we're also going to do some work today, some more work. So I want you to follow me, and you can watch what happens. All right, we're going to go back to one of the bedrooms where there has been some activity in the past. So follow me. All right, so this is an old farmhouse, a ranch house actually, and it's quite old, and we've been told that there's been activity that's been sensed in this room. And in talking with the owners earlier, they were discussing this tray that was found by one of the owners at another house that she discovered and dusted off. It was literally like, abandoned. And she brought it home with her to a different house at that time and she's been taking it with her ever since. And when I looked and saw, and by that I mean when I tuned in with my third eye or my clairvoyance, I did see that there was the spirit of a woman that had come with her and this tray. And she was wearing a long skirt and a shirt, and I wouldn't know exactly, but I would say that would be like early 1900s as would be my guess in terms of the timeline that she looked like she was from. And I want to show you the tray so you can see the tray that we were discussing. Looks like there's a mark here. It says copyright 1904, so that gives you a sense of the era of the tray. So we did come in here a short time ago and tuned in with the spirit and did a prayer for protection, calling on archangels Michael, Raphael, Shamuel, and Azrael. We're all good at helping to clear energy. And in particular, Azrael is known as the Archangel of Death. And again, not in a scary way, but in helping spirits and souls transition. And I want people to know that a ghost or an earthbound spirit is really a person just without a body. So sometimes that helps remove some of the fear about them. So just like any person can have different mental states and emotions, so can a ghost. So the ones that you often hear about are the ones that are angry or sad or maybe frustrated, and they're the ones that often make a lot of noise and kind of disturb people. And if you can imagine being around a live person who's angry all the time, that would also be not fun. So that's what people tend to think about. But this spirit in particular was actually very sweet and expressed to me that she really loved the family that she was living with. This Trey and her have been with the family for 33 years now. So she was very accustomed and had bonded with this family. And also had some feeling of protectionism towards the family, and then also was somewhat fearful or had some anxiety about crossing over, because from her perspective, all that she's known is her life that she had, and then after she died, being earthbound. So she doesn't remember the other side, in terms of crossing over into heaven or whatever it is that you want to call that other plane. So I talked with her and helped her to understand that it was okay, that she didn't have to be fearful. And I asked the angels to help accompanying her. And then I lit a candle. And a lot of times it's helpful to light a candle when you're imagining or bringing in this pillar of light, or sometimes you can imagine it being a staircase. There's many visuals that they can appear as an avenue for the spirits to cross over. So if you're wanting to do this at home, I always want to make sure that you do this in a safe way and have a candle or flame that's in a protected space. So this is a good example where the glass goes above the flame. So lit the flame, called in the prayer, and then what I saw was that she did have a family member from her life come to meet her. This happens a lot. It's a way of helping those that are worried about that transition feel more comfortable. So in this case, it was an older man. I think it was probably her father. He had a beard, and anyway, he came to greet her and helped her start that transition over completely to the other side, meaning into heaven or that afterlife versus being bound here on the earth plane. So that's what happens. We're gonna go explore in some of the other rooms and also share with you what happens there. Thanks. All right, so we're now in the next space where I sense some activity, and when we walked through this room, I sensed right away that there was something in this corner right here, actually. And so went ahead and looked again with my third eye, and what I saw was an entity that was residing in this corner. And I want people to know that an entity is an energy being that is not animal or human or angel, or has not ever been, as far as I understand. I don't know exactly what entities are. I feel like they're from another plane or something. This is not their home, basically. But they often come here and energetically interact with us and feed on different types of energy. So in this case, the entity that was here looks very much like a spider and actually had kind of created a cobwebby type of substance on the walls. Again, energetically, so it's not like you could see this with your physical eyes. And spider entities feed on fear. So when I was growing up as a girl and I didn't really understand about all this, I would often wake up in the middle of the night and see these giant spiders, and of course it totally freaked me out and made me afraid. And that is exactly what they're trying to do. They evoke an emotion, and then they, you know, create experiences for you that create that emotion, and then they feed on that energy. So it's funny too about this one, because in talking with owners, one of the people who lived here said that over the years there's always been this feeling of being afraid by this corner, which totally makes sense, because spider entities, again, will make you feel afraid and then feed on that. So what I did was I called on the angels and helped them in terms of visualizing, clearing, and asked that this entity go back to wherever it is that it belongs, because again, it does not belong here, and asked for any energy residue from that entity to be cleared from this corner. So it already feels a lot lighter and brighter, which I don't know if you can tell on camera, but that's an important thing, is that it's not just the feeling, but you'll actually sometimes even see a noticeable difference in the light. So that's this one, and then we'll go on and move on to the next rooms as well. All right, so this is a very interesting room. So I did not expect this, and I want to share with people that animals have spirits as well, and it is therefore possible for an animal to pass their body to die, and for their spirit to become an earthbound spirit or a ghost. So I've had ghost cats that interacted with me. And oftentimes those animals are, they might want to stay connected with their owners or people that are in their lives. But in this case, in this room, you can see here the mounted head of this elk. And as soon as I walked in here, I felt that this elk, the spirit of this elk, was here in the room. And then when I closed my eyes and looked with my third eye, the elk showed me a scene. He played out what was essentially what he experienced during his death. And for him, it happened very quickly, and it was like all of a sudden he was in his body, and then he was outside of his body watching himself be, I can't remember the term, but basically, processed after a hunt. So he felt like he still had life to live. He was very confused about the whole situation. And then in talking with the owners, what I learned is that this was not the typical hunt where the animal can see, that they're being pursued and they understand what's happening. But in this case, he was shot from very far away. So from his perspective, he didn't understand. It was like all of a sudden he was in body and all of a sudden he was not. And so it was hard for him to let go. So he wanted to tell his story and for me to explain this. And then it was, of course, very beautiful. I was able to work with the angels and open up the light for him to transition over completely to the other side. And he was reunited with his family members, because it's not just people that have family members, but also animals do as well. So that was very comforting. And as soon as he saw, his loved ones that he had known, he just felt immediately happier and was able to cross over. So very interesting, not something I expected. It's not very typical to find an animal ghost in a house, but we did find one here. So we'll go on into the upstairs shortly, and we'll see what we find there. All right, so just for contrast, I want to say that I didn't sense any particular beings or entities in here. So this is a clear room, this particular one. However, I did sense something in the bathroom, which is the next room over that we walked by. So I'm going to go and explore that, and we'll let you know what I find. All right, so wow, this was just a really intense experience that just happened. So um, just cleared an earthbound spirit or ghost that was in this room, in this bathroom, or at least that's where I was sensing her. And when I walked by, I immediately saw a flash of this woman in a bathtub, and not like this bathtub here. It was an older bathtub, and I'll tell you more about what happened. But this is a really interesting situation because it brings up the fact that ghosts are not always tied to a certain place. So I just did the clearing in a room downstairs where there was an elk that had been killed on this property and was tied to this property, and felt like this was where he was. This was his home. This particular spirit, in fact, I don't think was connected with this particular property, and actually seemed to have followed one of the people that lived here from somewhere else. And ghosts will often be attracted to someone who can sense them because not everyone does, and also they often feel lost and feel like they need help. So if someone can sense them, then there's a feeling that perhaps they can get some assistance. But back to what happened. So this particular spirit told me a little bit about her story. I don't know exactly what happened, but she was showing me that there was some feeling of loss with a man in her life. She looked young, I would guess early 20s perhaps, and she seemed to be from the time of the 20s or 30s in terms of when she passed. And because of this loss, she was devastated and just showed me how hopeless she felt. And she committed suicide, and she did that. What she showed me was by slitting her wrists and then soaking in a bathtub. So that's how I saw her, as just the spirit, just with tear-stained face. I could see her wounds, and she just was so sad. So in the process of helping her transition, I did what I always do. I called in the angels and asked for their help and for her to be comforted. But I also had to explain to her that she was not going to be punished for committing suicide, because a lot of people that commit suicide in this way have feelings that they are going to go to hell, for example, or just be punished for taking their own life. And I'd like people to know, based on my work as a medium, that is not my understanding. In fact, the closest thing to hell that I know is being earthbound and living that existence for so long, because essentially what happened for her is she's been in that emotional state of hopelessness and despair ever since she committed suicide decades ago and been trapped. And that sounds pretty awful to me. So, and it was really incredible because when I saw her step into the light to transition completely to the other side, what I saw was that this light was healing the wounds that were on her arms. So she was already being healed before she was even, crossed over. So anyway, it was really emotional and intense, and I'm really glad that we were able to help her transition. And I hope that some of this information is helpful to you watching at home. And we're going to go explore in one of the other bedrooms here on the second floor. All right, so this was a very interesting experience in this room, very different from in the bathroom that I just did the clearing for. And what was interesting about this one is that I didn't actually sense the spirit here. I felt like he was trying to come in, but for some reason the angels and spirit guides were saying, no, this is not the time, or for some reason not to let him in and talk with him and trying to transition him over. So what happened is the angels and guides showed me information about the particular earthbound spirit or ghost that has been coming here. And he was male and very angry. And these are the types of ghosts that we tend to think about with ghosts because they're the ones that often make our lives more difficult. Again, it's like being around a very angry person all the time. And in particular, this ghost was very angry and seemed to have a lot of animosity towards women, in particular women that he perceived to be strong. It was like a hot button for him or something. And I see that he goes here, but he also wanders around to several other properties in the area and maybe even another building that's on this property. So we might find out more about that tomorrow. So what the angels advised me to do was just set up angelic protection around this home, and just keep him out so that he does not feel like he can come in. And the other thing that happened is that I did see that there was a family member who's passed on completely to the other side, who is protecting the individual who sleeps in this room. And she did describe to me, the woman who sleeps here, an experience where she sensed this ghost come in, and then she felt someone else standing next to her at the bed, which felt protective. And I did believe that that was a family member who had passed on some time ago. So that's the short story of this room. Very interesting. Each room and being or spirit that we've encountered has been very different. We're going to take a break and continue this tomorrow because there's still more work to do, but you can only do so much in one day. And one other thing for people to know is that ghosts and entities, it's like they become stronger at night. It's very interesting. It almost parallels the light. The less light there is, the stronger they become. And then during the day, it's our time, and they become not as strong. So it's good not to try and do too much serious clearing work when it's really dark and it's starting to get later here. So we're going to stop and continue this tomorrow. Thanks. Hi, starting day 2 of this clearing at this ranch, and wanted to share what I'm doing now. So the first day I did some clearing downstairs and then started upstairs, and based on the timing was not able to finish everything in one day, which is why we're starting day 2, and feeling like there's a lot of intense stuff that's coming up. And one of the things that happens is when spirits sense that there's someone there to, help move them on, they get kind of upset sometimes or agitated. So the energy upstairs is fairly intense. And last night, actually, there were a lot of unexplained noises. And even though I slept last night fine, I did hear that there was a lot going on. And so I'd like to start out today by burning some sage, which I have right here. Happened to have picked this outside, which is great, but sage is a plant that is known for its clearing properties. It helps just shift the energy of the room, and it's been used in Native American cultures for a long time, and is recognized now by Westerners as well as a tool for helping to clear energy. So what I'm going to do is light this, and then I'm going to go upstairs and get the smoke clearing the space up there before I do some other type of work with clearing any beings that are actually up there. So one of the important things while you're saging is to make sure you get into all the corners, hard to reach areas, closets, for example, and waft the smoke in there, because actually that's where beings tend to hide. So rather than skip on those places, those are the places that you often want to spend a lot of extra time in, as well as just paying attention to where you feel like there's stagnant energy or energy that just doesn't feel good. All right. So in the process of saging this room, just found an entity that was here, and so was just doing some clearing work with angels on that entity. It was a pretty nasty looking, slimy being that was right above the bed, so that's what I'm working on right now. So just something came up quickly that I want to share with you, which is that sometimes entities or spirits can make you feel things physically. So in this case, there's being here that is making us feel a couple things. One, both my camera person and myself feel pressure in the chest, almost like a weight. And then the other thing is feeling nauseous, like to just all of a sudden just feel like, oh, no, something's not right, and just feel like not, upset stomach. So I do feel that this coming from one particular being. He feels male, and we are going to try and work with him a bit later, and I can tell he really doesn't want us here, but feel the need to finish staging, and then we're going to see if we can work on him some more. All right, just had a really interesting experience. So when we last talked, we were upstairs doing the saging, and it was really intense. Was feeling, both myself and the camera woman, this feeling of intense pressure in the chest, feeling nauseous, and had to take a break because of this experience to just recharge and figure out how to proceed. Was sensing that this was a male spirit who was very, very angry. And when I checked in about whether we could get him to transition over, he was showing me no, that he wasn't going to. So I wasn't sure. But after taking a break and asking the angels for information, I received information that was really helpful. One of the things was that he was showing me was, being hauled away in handcuffs. So just a sense of, resistance, a lot of resistance. But when I talked with the angels, they showed me that this was the man who'd had a very tough life. They showed me that he felt like he was a nail that was hammered into the ground over and over again, just, sort of punished and just, driven down. And they also showed me how he passed, which is really intense, and also helped explain the pressure in the chest. They showed me that a man, while he was sleeping, stepped on his chest and then slit his throat. So what we were feeling, that pressure, was in fact what he had been feeling ever since he passed, and it explained why it was so intense and hard to manage. Also explained why he was so angry, and that even though what he put across emotionally was this anger, that what really was underneath it was this fear and this sadness, that he felt he had no control. And it was really beautiful because one of the things that really helped was to him to tell a story. And that's what I find a lot with spirits, is that even if they seem angry or aggressive, sometimes it's like they, oddly enough, just need someone to listen. And then that helps them release whatever trauma or sadness that they're holding on to. So after learning these things about him, I was able to help him understand that it was okay for him to transition. He didn't need to be afraid. Also to let him know that he could still come visit, because once he crossed over, it's not like he can't come back, but he's not stuck here as an earthbound spirit would be. So when I saw him transition, I did see that he met a woman who was in the light, and I believe that that woman was his mother. And I also was able to see him healing. So I saw the slit in his throat heal. I felt that pressure released from the chest, and also saw this. It was like this darkness that came out of his body. So whatever it is, this anger, this fear, I don't know, but something literally was released when he went into the light, and it was really beautiful. And just it's always important to remember with spirits that even if they seem angry and aggressive, that oftentimes there's some deep sadness or hurt that's beneath that, and that's often the case with people that are alive as well. So this was just a really incredible experience, and a wonderful way to end this weekend. And it is really my hope that with all of this releasing and shifting that we've done, that the people who live here will have a much more positive and peaceful experience living here.